Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Third Thing. I'm Roger Hanson, I'm your host, and tonight I am here with Mark Edworthy. Hello, Mark.
Hi.
Okay, so before we get started, let me put the window capture back up so that we can get that all set up and going. And tonight I actually have this one set up pretty good with the talking and everything. It has to do with something that me and Bob Dub and Otto have been wanting to have a discussion with Mike about. Actually, we just had a show with him, and uh, he's come out with interesting books on quantum physics. And I've been doing what I've been discussing with you guys concerning basically consciousness and the cosmic structures and stuff like that. And I know you referred to it a few times as symbolism and stuff, Mark. But
Mm.
I like or I've termed it as like the patterns underneath that beneath all things, basically, is how I see it. And I've been doing some checking up on some of the stuff that he wrote about and comparing it to what I've been talking about, and I came up with some interesting stuff. You know what I mean? Because for me, it seems that what he's talking about and what I'm talking about are two systems with one shape. You know what I mean? Um,
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because have you ever done any research into unified quantum relativity curvature?
Unified quantum.
Relativity curvature. They usually call it UQRC.
Is that Hawkinson?
I believe so.
Um,
Yes.
Yeah. A bit of Hawkinson, my time. That's not for many years, anyway.
Well, it's a scientific theory that proposes that geometry, information, and quantum behaviors are different expressions of the same underlying structure, basically. And for me, I might get this wrong, but I called it my whole thing was the patterns beneath all things, basically. You know what I mean? And it's more of a philosophical model, which is which describes like how duality, and interaction, and triality, how they govern like emergence and consciousness and stuff like that. And basically, what I found with both of them is like both systems, they reveal like a shared architecture, basically. You know what I mean? And it has to do with coherence. It's got to do with curvature, and when it comes to like things like meaning, uh, meaning emerges from structured tension and not conflict. You know what I mean? But tension,
Okay.
but tension. Um, that's what I found out whenever I was doing a lot of the stuff, comparing what he was talking about with the stuff that I've been doing. You know what I mean? Because it started out with me and Bob Dub talking about duality, and then I started getting into the cosmic weave and started talking about like the human brain and stuff of that nature. And then I started checking this out and cross referencing it with a lot of the stuff that I've been doing, and that's what I started noticing right there, you know, um, especially when it comes to like uh, when it comes to like tension and not conflict. That's the whole duality versus dualism thing that I was talking about, because there can be tension in a structure, Structured tension is basically what I'm saying. Like rest energy. You know what I mean? That has tension within it, structured tension. Things of that nature.
I think I know what you mean. I'm a bit confused, but
Well, when it comes down to like the role of duality and tension, I think is that's the thing that really needs to be discussed first of all. Like, if you take a look at duality in physics, that would be like gravity versus quantum behavior, or say freaking curvature versus uncertainty. You know. Or like if you take a look at it in psychology, or even philosophy, that would be what I've discussed with you guys before about consciousness and then unconsciousness. There'd be chaos and order, and then self, and then other. That's duality. Now, after that, you look at how that unifies with the idea of unified quantum relativity curvature. It's about duality, and how it's not opposition. You know what I mean?
No, I don't know what you mean. What the hell are you talking about?
We're talking about oh, he's gone. Somebody else came in.
yeah, the
No, somebody else besides him, isn't there? Or is he on two of them? Oh, there's Otto. Yeah,
Otto's good. Yeah.
cool. He came back in.
Oh, you're much more clearly now.
There you go. Yeah, I can
I
see
see
him.
you got the full beard started. Men should wear beards.
Yeah, he turned the
You know-
light back on, is what it was. He did.
I was at the park one day, when I do my act, and the kids come up and they talk, and this little kid comes up to me, and his dad was there and his mom. His dad was shaven, and looks at me and says, "Why do you have a beard?" And I was completely nonplussed. It wasn't about usual things. So I just said, just off the top of my head, because I am neither a woman nor a child. And the kid's mom just started roaring with laughter. Even the dad laughed. It was like the first thing I thought. I was like, "Why do you wear it?" Well, I'm not a woman or a child, so I have a beard. It's just, men do that. They don't shave. It just happens. It's just, I know from the pictures I've seen, Rod, you shave, but you have to shave because you've got a beard coming out.
Yeah,
you have
right.
a beard. You just clip it off. So
If I shave this off, it'll be back. I'd say within 4 months.
there you go.
Like,
And I gotta ask, you have an accent that is something like a friend of mine's, but my friend's from Chicago. I don't think you're from Chicago.
Who, me?
Yes.
My accent, I've never been in Chicago. I was born in the Bronx, and I grew up with people talking with a Bronx accent. And to be fair, if you put me in the Bronx right now and I'm hanging out with my cousins, within 10 minutes, I will have a very marked Bronx accent. I pick it right up again. But I lived mostly I lived in the North for a while. Then we moved to the South. I actually lived in the South for quite a while when I was a small child. We lived in Maryland, which is technically the South, although I don't think a Southerner would think of them as the South.
No.
But then we lived in Florida for a while, and then we lived in Central America. And I have a lot of cousins that are Latin. And if you like, although they don't call themselves Latin, they're Panamanian or Costa Rican or Brazilian or whatever. And then back up to the States, lived after that mostly in upstate, what we call upstate New York, East Central New York. And so my accent's kind of an amalgamation of like the East Coast of the United States, I would say, offhand.
Well, you have, I was going to say, you have sort of a lingering transatlantean sort of feel.
Well, I grew up with a lot of British media, read a lot. My authors were, I used to, this one English guy I met, I said, everything I know about Great Britain comes from P.G. Wodehouse. But I grew up with H.G. Wells and with Conan Doyle, Chesterton, all these British writers. So that kind of affected my diction, I think. And then, of course, Monty Python's Flying Circus was a huge influence on my generation. We all grew up imitating all the different accents. And, of course, they were imitating a lot of accents. So you have an American kid who's pretending to be a received standard English kid pretending to do a Welsh accent. There's nothing more hilarious in retrospect.
Yeah, there is.
And you're 10 years old and you're trying to do this, and it's like
there's just something more funnier than that. It's trying to figure out why that dude's always wanting to run back out in the water in the first episode. I still don't get that. Like, he comes on the beach, he turns around and he runs back into the water.
Wow.
Well, that's
What?
life. We keep going back into the water.
You know what I mean? It's like
The water.
he's stranded, so he decides he's gonna swim to freaking civilization. And he finally gets to civilization, runs up on the beach, decides he doesn't want to be there, and he runs back into the water. That's always blown my mind.
Well, you do a lot of hard work to get somewhere, and you get there, and you decide, wow, I didn't really want to be here.
He just turns around and goes back
College
in.
was kind of like that for me at a certain point. I'm like, what am I doing here? This is not what I expected.
Same here.
I was probably looking for Hogwarts or something where you'd find wisdom. I was looking for wisdom in my professors. I found 2 professors out of I don't know how many dozens that I stayed good friends with, and who were, I thought, really wise people. But it was a mess.
Yeah.
Oh well, happy days.
Wisdom. I actually approached a professor who was his thing was molecular physics. And I started talking to him about how some of this covert technology works, PMT has, and he kind of just like pulls me aside. He's like, you come out with this information, there are going to be people who think they're way smarter than you, very angry and upset they didn't catch what you caught, and they'll be fervent deniers of what you have today. And especially as they have to protect their own credibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be very easy to call me a conspiracy theorist, even though the information I have is easily traceable through all peer-reviewed and government site listings of science.
Well, that's what we were getting right. Like the stuff that I've been talking about. Me and Mark were talking about when you guys got in here, and I went through and I pulled up some stuff that was interesting that he had written about unified quantum relativity curvature, and I compared it to the stuff that I have. Now I was able to pull up notes too, by the way, Mark, so that you know. But what I called it, because I was having a hard time remember what I called it, and it was the pattern beneath all things, and that's what I've been talking about, like the physical model. It describes how duality and interaction and triality governs like emergence and consciousness, and I compared that to what unified quantum relativity curvature is, and you know what I mean. And this is a scientific theory that proposes that geometry, information, and quantum behaviors are different expressions of the same underlying structure. And that's basically the same thing right there. Those two things are the same thing, just worded differently. Because both systems reveal like a shared architecture, and that's where like coherence, curvature, and meaning emerge from like structured tension. And it's not conflict, it's structured tension. You know what I mean? So then you have to take a look at the role of duality and tension. Now, all of this stuff right here, it goes perfectly in line with everything that was being discussed when it comes to Mike. That's why I wanted to have that conversation with him, is because this is really interesting. It's actually validating a lot of the stuff that I've been actually researching for like a year and a half now.
I'm scared that you're going to become a trisexual.
You gotta go to another planet for that.
Well, earlier, the thing of it was I wasn't really into the triality thing until here recently. I dabbed into it a while back, but then I really got back into this whole thing with Bob Dub on the duality thing. And I was willing to accept the whole duality aspects of all of it. And I completely forgot about triality until you mentioned it when we were having that show with Nancy and you brought it up. And then that clicked and I was like, whoa, dude, I said I was going to go back over that again later on. And I realized that's the next point. Like, you can't have a freaking cosmos that is just duality, okay? Because that leaves out freaking complexity, emergence. It leaves out all of that, you know what I mean? So you have to have complexity. And that's like with computers, okay? Computer science, that's all symmetry. That's it. You know what I mean? It's not, well, quantum computing is complexity now, but like a computer system is all symmetry. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Well, symmetry is hardwired into us, I think.
Right.
Babies recognize symmetry. Animals, I've seen animals demonstrate. Remember when I was a small child, we had a front porch with a lot of like old furniture on it, and furniture got moved, and discovered that the cat had been killing mice, and there's a reason for that. But we discovered the bodies of all these mice, and they were laid out in perfect equidistant, like in one little row, one after the other, equidistant from each other. And I remember once finding, on opening my door in the morning, right in the middle of my welcome mat, which I think actually said go away at the time, there was a bright blue robin's egg, right dead center. Now, it possibly could have been a message from the secret chiefs who caused a robin's egg to apport in the middle of my carpet, but I think it's more likely that one of my cats, which I had like a half a dozen at the time, decided to leave a gift, but it was right in the exact center, which shows that even a cat, and I'll conclude this little example, my favorite example, my cat Iggy, who is no longer with us. My neighbors, these guys had bought the house next to us, and they had to move away because she was allergic to electricity. That's another story. But they had taken and gotten a rototiller, and they decided they were going to garden. So right in the middle of their backyard, they had rototilled this big hunk. It was like 15 by 20 foot, beautiful, all rototilled. And I came home from work one day, and there, right in the exact dead center, was my cat Iggy deciding they'd prepared a litter box for him. And he was making it his in his own special way, just digging right in and, covering up his little scat. But again, right dead center. So symmetry is going to always be part of our universe, I think. That's the way we perceive things, is symmetrically or asymmetrically. And even our asymmetrical things have a certain symmetry to them. Even things that are off-center, we tend to make a symmetrical asymmetry, if you know what I mean.
Right. Well, it gets into what I was talking about, like the role of duality and tension. You know what I mean? Like if you take a look at like the tension between poles, okay, that allows energy, movement, and structure. But then you take a look at like what Mike's talking about with curvature. Now, curvature, when it comes to curvature, it's curvature versus uncertainty.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's a duality there. And there's also a duality and tension on top of that, And that's something that really did stick out to me. That was the second thing that really stuck out to me.
Well, I typically say you can't really have asymmetry, because if something just breaks off, you have something fractal. Get it? So it's fractal.
That was a horrible joke, man. I'm gonna have to like rank you right
It had
up
to be
there.
made, though.
It had to, absolutely.
I have to like clump you up there with Mark Witosik, like, and him and his dad jokes. Like you come like a close first or second, one or the other, but.
At least I'm not doing my wife first date jokes, which are always unfortunate.
Well, it's like I said with before. You guys have heard me talk about emergence and the third element. Okay. Now, if you take a look at that, and you take a look at both of these models, okay, both models, well, in both models, like interactions between dualities usually give rise to something new. That's something else that frickin' I noticed. Like in physics, interaction between space-time and quantum rules, they usually lead to curved coherence. You know? And then like in my theory on pattern, interactions lead to like synthesis or meaning, you know? So you've got that going on there, and it's the same thing, different language, you know? And I also mentioned too, like the third element, it's not a blend, you know what I mean? It's a new architecture, a different level of structure, basically. Does that, you guys understand that?
Yep. I get it.
Okay. Yeah, I know you guys have been picking on me about triality, and that's where this all basically leads to. You know what I mean? Because
It's fun to do that.
well, I mean, triality is the architecture of recursion and meaning. And that's where you start learning about recursion. And people don't like that word. They don't like recursion. But the thing of it is it's needed. You know, it really is needed when it comes to a lot of this stuff, because it introduces shape and feedback. You know.
Well, we need shape, certainly.
You know.
Nama Rupa, name and form. You know, that's how we interact with the world.
What tripped me out when I was talking to Jiva was whenever I got to this part and I started mentioning things like true, false, and undetermined. You know what I mean? It kind of like goes to like the three things like observed, observer, and interaction. That's triality right there. You know, it's just as much as triality is saying like the beginning, the middle, and the end, you know. And we won't say the religious stuff because that tends to get you guys all huffity puffity, and I don't want to go there. Not tonight.
Oh, the heart, the brain, the body, father, mother, child, right?
Yeah.
Roger, you are 5 minutes away from going to your local gay club and picking up train.
Trans.
I'm sorry.
It's a trap.
Well.
It's a trap.
First of all, where do you
We
get
got-
three from a
bar over here.
transgender? You know, where's the third gender at? I just don't get that. It's like that makes absolutely.
The Japanese.
shit and the other.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. The Japanese in the Edo era, they had a third sex. They would be young boys who had to keep their hair, but they dressed like women, and they looked like women. So when you saw the guys with the bald, like the long hair but the bald cap, that's how you know that's a man. But if you came across a male with all of his hair, that was kind of the practice sex.
Right. So
Yeah.
now that we've covered the important stuff, let's move on to unified quantum relativity curvature. Okay.
Mark has a
Okay.
comment. Mark
Yeah.
cannot. He must speak. Lord,
I mentioned a Lotus Eaters video on earlier tonight, and on the same video, they were talking about a list of genders, and they came out with something like I think it was a list of like 200 different genders.
Whatever, man. Like,
Well, you
Sci-
know,
science
at
fiction.
At that point, it's like your favorite flavor ice cream.
right.
I don't really care. If you want to have pistachio or vanilla, that's your kink, and that's, you know, I do weird
Yeah.
enough stuff and have done weird enough stuff over the years. I don't judge anyone else as long as everyone's a consenting adult in the room. Call yourself whatever. And I'll even use your terms if you ask me politely, because I'm polite. And I again, I call myself Otto. I have all kinds of weird names, stage names and stuff.
Can you
But
believe what my dating life would be like if I dated 250 different kinds of genders?
you'd never be bored.
Wow.
You'd never be bored.
Yeah.
You'd have to have like just cut a notch in your bedpost every time you get each one for an individial gender. You know, kind of your bed would fall over because you'd cut right through the.
That's happening.
So basically what I got out of when I was going over Mike's stuff and it came to this unified quantum relativity curvature, it has to do a lot with information curvature and algebra and how they become like the threefold structure.
Right.
You get measurement, which equals curve constraint, that leads into coherence, where it's transformed, and it's transformed. It doesn't collapse. You know what I mean? Now that really stuck out to me, because when you take a look at it, triality is the axis of stability, the root structure of any evolving or recursive system, whether it's in physics or it's in the mind or even if it's in myth. You know, so that's something that I that really stuck out to me. I connected the dots on that one. And if that's too complex for you guys, go ahead and get you an aspirin.
Oh.
See, I know like transgender 250 different layers of flavors and stuff.
Well, it's again, if you're calling, suddenly it means the term gender is basically meaningless.
Yeah.
I mean, it traditionally refers to having to do with, one of the sexes. And the fact that we have to start qualifying things by saying biological sexes is very odd. But if you want to have 200 genders, I got no problem with that, but don't expect me to take an interest.
Right.
And certainly don't compel my speech. And that's worse than like censored speech in a way. If you compel me to say something that I know is not true, or something that goes against my basic beliefs and ideas, such as forcing me to like advocate for like violence of any sort or something like that, I can say, well, I have a personal religious conviction that that essentially is a wrong thing for me to do. But you say, well, you have to, or you have to say this or declare that this is a fact, that the earth is motionless and the sun goes around it, which actually I think there are good arguments for. But these flat earth guys, they're just pikers. I go full Ptolemaic. I tend to go full Ptolemaic system. I think that really makes the most sense, and it's much more elegant and beautiful. So what if it's incredibly and needlessly complicated? It's still more fun.
When you go that route though, I blame it on philosophical reconciliation. Now, I know everything you just said right there has to do with reconciliation, and that's where a lot of this came from. It started in science when they started putting out philosophical reconciliation, and they did it with this stuff too, especially when it comes to unified quantum relativity curvature. You know what I mean? Because it's more than like unifying physics. It resolves like deep philosophical tensions.
And that all maths, all physics are basically models. They aren't the universe. They're just our way of understanding it, and we can use them to make predictions about things. This bridge will hold if we make the steel this thick, stuff like that. So we know that it does correspond to whatever the real world is, that which we perceive anyway. It corresponds to what we perceive, and it gives us an amazing feeling of understanding. But ultimately, what we're understanding are the models, and and the more perfect the model, the more useful it is for certain applications. Now, me personally, I think that a geocentric model in which there are only 4 elements with a 5th quintessence is a much easier thing for me to wrap my tiny little head around than these old big bangs and black holes and all this sorts of things. I mean, if we use Occam's razor, it makes a lot more sense that the planets are actually living things or perhaps pushed by invisible angels in these routes due to the will of a divine being that obviously created us. It's the simplest explanation. So it's obviously, according to Occam's razor, that's obviously the most true. But at the end of the day, it's just a model, and the model of 4 physical elements. Well, that has certain uses. You can use it to make certain analogies and certain ideas. It's probably not nearly as useful as having like 100 and some odd elements, chemical elements, and then transuranic and plutonium and stuff like that. Obviously, with that metaphor, you can do a lot more. So we can build like New York. Some would say that's more, some would say less, but we can ask the people that used to live in Manhattan. But
Yeah.
So yeah, these are all. So when we're doing this quantum stuff, this is going to open up not really so much a new universe, I think, but it's if we can think in different ways about the universe, we can affect the universe differently. So this might open up, macro quantum effects, which I've very been difficult for me to understand why we can't have macro quantum effects, why it all has to be micro, because I run into a lot of uncertainty in the so-called real world. Sort of thing. But as we understand this stuff more, who knows what we'll be able to do. So ideas like this,
We do know macro.
that are gonna, well, we know some. We're gonna know a lot more.
Well, I
That's
mean,
the-
I know if I've got a rifle with scope pointed at someone's head, it's fully loaded, and I pull a trigger, a bullet's gonna fly out and it's gonna destroy that person's brain, and they're never gonna move
Well,
again.
Well,
this
you can make that as a good assertion, but then again, sometimes there's unexpected things. Somebody can like sneeze, turn quickly, a cartridge can jam. It's quite likely that that's going to happen, but you never know how the quantum, and
well, let me
that's
throw,
part of the fun too. If we knew exactly everything that was going to happen, I mean, who would even bother paying attention? But it's this always this uncertainty that kind of can make things a little fun sometimes.
By the way,
no, I can actually
Brutus.
I can actually put something into that. Now, if you take a look at like what I was saying with the reconciliation, okay, look at geometry and algebra and how it's being unified. Okay, you take a look at like the term being and then becoming. All right, and then you have geometry and algebra, which is also process. You know what I mean?
I was just suddenly thinking about I love samurai movies. One of my favorite samurai movies is Ghost Dog. And there's a great
Oh, yeah.
scene where he's like cutting through the old roundup mobsters. And those guys, like, I have relatives like that. That's what the mob is like these days. They're just these has-beens. And he's got the guy in his sights. He's standing there with his arms spread, and suddenly the butterfly lands right in front of the scope. And that's the kind of chaos that can suddenly come in. And then it's like, okay, he's got to go in with his version of a katana and the short sword. Just good. I always liked that the way he would go in using the two pistols like that. That was a really well done samurai movie. I mean, I can argue about production details. There are bits and pieces I can criticize, but overall, I would rank that up there with any major samurai film. Anything by Kurosawa.
I've got to know, with you and all this Buddhism stuff, have you ever even hurt another living creature? Have you killed anything in your life?
Unfortunately, I have been harmful sometimes. Yeah, I've done some pretty terrible things, especially
you
before I
killed a
really
cockroach?
understood Buddhism. Oh yeah.
Have you
like
killed
that.
a mouse?
Yeah. In Buddhism, there's something they call ahimsa, harmlessness, and you want to be as harmless as possible. I get looks from I work at outdoors, and like if there's like a little woolly bear caterpillar crossing the path, I'll pick it up and get it to the other side so no one treads on it. Stuff like that. I try to be good because I know I haven't always been.
What about flies
And-
and mosquitoes?
I don't kill flies anymore. I used to kill flies. I used to go around saying I am the fly killing Buddha. That's when I was into all that Mahayana, all that heretical Mahayana gobbledygook.
Mahayana.
I don't think
See,
any of
You
the-
say it a lot
Mahayana-
nicer than Jeffy does. Like when he says it, he likes to like enunciate Mahayana.
Oh wow, those guys. I'm not going to go on about
My question is relevant. See, fly killing Buddha.
the
See?
fly killing Buddha. Well, that was kind of a Zen idea, which I don't really subscribe to much anymore.
Yeah.
It was not anyway. It was not really. There's a theory that any action that the whole thing is karma or kama, we say in Pali. But if you can perform an action without any desire or any feeling about it, basically, if you can be completely neutral about it, you don't produce any karma. Karma is
like
a
a
mental
psychopath.
state. Basically, yeah, but this was the key to the Zen sword and the Zen archery of the Japanese. And
Yeah.
this is why this is rejected, and it was held in control by a very, very rigorous social code and social order. And I've talked about this, and this is what I wanted my next talk to be about. I have that saying that the illuminated mind is an arrow flying straight to hell, because you can unlock these things, and if you don't know that they are simply a step, and if you don't have the other training to control and understand what's going on, then you're just beyond good and evil, and then you just decide to do evil, which is as bad in a sense as doing good. I mean, ultimately, you don't want to do anything. But the Zen guys had this whole idea that, like, nothing is permanent, nothing is real. The blade is unreal. The neck of the person is unreal. An unreal thing is passing through an unreal thing. No karma is created. And next thing you know, you've got a field full of decapitated people. And maybe it's a battle, maybe you're testing your sword, I don't know. So they were held in check by that. And in Buddhism and in all the trainings I know of, your primary training in Buddhism, the first thing they train you in is virtue, generosity, compassion, basically ingraining in you to be a good person. And the thing is, this isn't because other people are deserving of niceness. It's usually it's the opposite. But the thing is, when you engage in these activities, which Buddhism would call very unskillful, you're really hurting yourself more ultimately even than the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I told that story before about the George Bernard Shaw, or no, excuse me, it reminded me of Shaw, that play by Gene Wolfe, where the woman like slaps the other woman, and that woman says, "Don't do that again," and she slaps her again and say, "If you do that again, you know, you'll be punished horribly." He's like, "What? You'll learn to like it."
Mm-hmm.
And to have your soul twisted that way,
Right.
yeah, you're not going to a good place.
Well, it's
Well,
weird.
you
It's weird that you
mentioned
guys
the
brought that
mosquito.
up. It's weird that you brought that up though, because like the duality of structure. You know what I'm saying? It's when you look at what you just said and you compare that to structure versus transformation. You know what I mean? Like people seem to be freaking brought into this world where they're structured to act a certain way. You know what I mean? And
Right.
they have
We
to.
we have a structure that dictates certain. We need air to breathe.
Right.
Well, so I got a question. So, let's say I put you in a glass box. I put 5 mosquitoes in there with you.
With me?
Yes.
Okay.
You can't leave that box until those things are dead. What do you do?
Well, how comfortable is the box? Do I have weed? Of course I would. I'd have some with me.
You can have anything you want in the box
Thing.
with you, but there's gonna be 5 mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes are tough. You don't. It's been a long time, but there was a time when I spoke with my friend Roberta every day, and we spoke for hours a day, every single day for many years. Then she went off, and I can't talk to her much anymore. But she and I would often talk, and I would just be sitting outside with the mosquitoes, and I would go, "Oh, killed a mosquito." Sometimes I would just like, mosquitoes are tough, but I used to do a mosquito meditation.
No.
Yes, and it worked. And this was I was more into the quick ascent, short path, tantric kind of Mahayana, Vajrayana gobbledygook. But I was practicing it quite a bit, and I would go out camping with my friends. And my friend had this acreage, but it was in a swamp basically. But we'd go out there all weekend, and we'd bring I'd bring a case of wine. We'd have like hot and cold running LSD, lots of weed.
Oh, wow.
We'd go out there and we'd have like these really hellified weekends. So we'd be sitting out there and the fire would be going, and the mosquitoes some nights were awful. And the guys were like, they're slapping and they're spraying themselves down. And so I don't want to put that chemical on me. I'd had a really bad reaction to DEET once. I'm like, no, I'm not putting that shit on me. So what I would do is I would sit around the fire with them all. And I would just start meditating. And I would just, I don't know how to describe it, but I would just kind of make myself, I would like I'd say today I was giving metta to the mosquitoes. I was wishing them goodwill.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, you don't eat much. It's okay. And this and that. And they'd stop biting me. And I'd sit there fine in shirt sleeves and my friends would still keep slapping themselves. Now, that being said, I also freely admit that they were being a lot more active and I was sitting there cross-legged and breathing regularly. So I would guess my body temperature might have been a degree or two lower. I also realized that mosquitoes sent, carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide that's given off by the skin, and they were probably generating more. So there's that too. So I do not completely discount the physical effects of meditation, but I also don't discount the mental effects. I would say the two were a continuum, but be that as it may, I have done mosquito meditation and it has worked.
Well, that's fascinating because, like, so when people have noticed, I'll just say this. So people, bugs don't bother me. They just simply don't. With the exception of the last place I lived at, that's a horror story and doesn't count.
Those are mutants. Bugs, they don't count.
Well, that's a totally different situation. But in a normal situation, normal people in normal settings, bugs don't bother me. Like I just had to spray the house down a couple of days ago, or a few days ago, with some peppermint stuff because my roommate is just being eaten alive by spiders.
Wow, amazing.
My wife, she would complain that she's being eaten alive by mosquitoes. It's like, I don't know, no mosquitoes bitten me lately. And so I've literally gone years and years without a mosquito bite. Which is weird. I don't know.
That's helpful.
Like some demons inside me?
That's helpful.
Maybe I am like Mortarion.
You never know. Well, everybody's body chemistry is a little different, and who knows? I think some people are probably tastier than others.
Well,
these critters,
sugar diabetics, they have insulin when they put it in there. If you put too much, because if your insulin levels are too high, it'll literally kill mosquitoes if they bite you. You'll wake up.
And you know what? Garlic too. They don't like garlic. If you eat a lot of garlic,
Yeah, I've heard a lot.
if I go camping, I'll sometimes eat a couple of cloves of garlic before I go. I think that helps.
Really?
I know a guy that hunts, and he swears up and down by eating garlic.
Uh-huh.
And he says keeps the mosquitoes away, and of course most other people, vampires will go away too. But yeah, he does a lot of hunting, and I'm like, do you worry about the ticks? Because we have a lot of the, thank you Fort Derrick. They released that Rocky Mountain spotted fever bioweapon back in the 50s or whenever, and we have a lot of it around here. I've had Lyme disease twice, and it sucks, and I've been treated for it. And of course, I've got the persistent symptoms that hit me every so often, and
oh wow.
Yeah, well, you can look it up if you want to see it. It's basically pain and exhaustion suddenly hits you. And, I have arthritis as it is. So in the first case, it was like, is my arthritis just acting really bad? And my doctor's like, he's looking at me. He's like, you got Lyme. So they put me through like this monster series of doxycycline. And then I got another tick a few months ago working at the dog factory there for my dog sitting job. And they just put me on it, bam, just to make sure. So
this might be a stupid question, but are you familiar with Morgellons disease? You have to.
Not offhand, but there's so many diseases. It's hard to keep up.
Oh, okay. Well, the Morgellons disease is man-made.
Oh,
It's so I don't know if you've seen these people online. There's so many Google images of people with Morgellons disease. So basically, it's these metallic lesions that have been showing up on people's skins. And they'll get metallic fibers that grow out of their skin.
I've got so many bad reviews on that. I mean, it's like everybody says that it's freaking like an obsession, or and they have like weird I mean, so many people are against it, and like, there's no facts proving or disproving that it's real or not. You know what I mean? It's just,
Oh, actually, the Australian
Bullshit.
government did recognize Morgellons disease. I talked to the only person.
Australians.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I talked
Like
to the
he's
only
listening to
person
Australians
in the
and
world
shit.
who collects disability from Morgellons disease.
Oh my god.
Didn't we have
Update.
Roger, didn't we
Yes.
have a long discussion about this last year on
With Nancy.
Dexter?
With Nancy and Vicky.
Mm.
And it was weird because, I mean, it's actually a good topic because, like, these doctors are actually just ignoring it completely. Like, there's no issue there, but these aren't like a few people. You know what I mean?
Well, it was really screwed up. I'm expounding upon what you just said. The people who do show these symptoms and they complain about it are the doctors that don't want to admit that there's something wrong with them, or they'll say that it's Lyme disease. These people are put into mental wards and are not released until they get medication for parasitosis
Parasites.
and other psych. Yeah, well, I mean, essentially so some of these people with Morgellons claim that little metallic robots have come out of their lesions.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
saw pictures of
sorry.
crystal.
Yeah, I remember that we were talking about nanotechnology and
Yeah,
assembling robots and machines, which
Yes.
again I'm extremely skeptical of.
that's exactly
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about.
You know, I think sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. I think we're on such a cutting edge here. The stuff we're talking about is theoretically possible, but I think it's sort of like when Jules Verne was talking about submarines, not for another 10 or 15 years, or you know, it's the sort of, you know, it's funny because we were talking earlier about DARPA and all these dark projects and stuff, and one of the things I picked up from Jacques Vallée is that all this classified stuff, there was a time when it wasn't, and if you go back far enough, you can get a hint of what they're doing now. So somebody patents some kind of radar absorbing paint back in 1960 whatever, and then you keep looking at it and suddenly the patent's classified. Aha, I think they're doing something with that sort of thing. And we can draw a lot of, I think most of the conclusions, anything we know about right now basically is going to be the classified information of the future. I think we're seeing more inklings of what's going to happen. And again, our science fiction drives our technology. The Air Force's latest stealth thing looks like a fucking saucer from the side. And
Yeah.
I got a communicator in my pocket.
Yeah, actually, that also goes around the opposite way as well. Things that were made for military usage are now commonplace. I mean, I'm thinking of Teflon.
Yeah.
Velcro.
See, it's weird how you guys mention all that stuff too, because like this actually goes, because you're falling right into it when he was talking about that Morgellons disease. Okay, and all of the topics that you're popping up here, this goes right into the next thing that I was getting ready to talk about when it comes to like mind and matter and entropy, through entropy actually. You know, it comes down to like the physical energy versus informational awareness. You know what I'm saying? Like it causes a lot of it's weird how we actually got into that conversation and stuff, because that's exactly where I'm at when it comes to a lot of this stuff. It's all connected. You know what I mean? It's all about it's a matter of information flow. You know what I'm saying? I know that it sounds weird, but it's not. Entropy basically is where it's not just disorder. Okay, it's like a structure. Right. It's a structured difference, and you can look at it like a bridge that's between the mind and matter, basically. So when people have this Morgella disease, I mean, is it really their mind playing tricks on him? Maybe. causing this to happen to their skin?
Well,
I think-
so you're talking.
Well, there are symptoms. I don't know anything about this, but symptoms are obviously observable.
yes.
Mhm.
Like, so there's lesions. What's the mainstream explanation?
The mainstream explanation is that it's Lyme disease. This is
With
what-
with fluorescent metallic patches? Lyme's been around a long time, and I live in like Lyme Center, USA. And I've had Lyme. I've known guys that get Lyme. All the symptoms I know of have to do with like severe, incredibly severe joint pain, exhaustion, turpitude, and I've never had much in the way of me personally or know anyone that had, except where you're bit. And
Right.
the bite can get really really horrible. I was actually bit once by a spider, and I think it was a spider. I don't know. It wasn't a tick. It wasn't Lyme disease. I think it was. I was out back doing something in the yard, and it bit me down near my waist, and it was a red patch. And I'm like, oh, that'll go away. And it got bigger, but I'm a man, so I just ignored it. And eventually, it got up almost to my neck.
Oh wow.
And, well, I just it'll get better. I put some peroxide on it. And I got out of the tub one day. You know how when you get out of the tub, it's like your skin really any wound or redness just stands out. And I just stepped out of the tub. My wife walked past the bathroom door and she looked at me and she just screamed. And she pointed, "So you're going to the doctor right now?" And I'm like, "Oh, that'll go away." Oh, well, yeah, actually, it is almost my neck, isn't it? I think I better go.
I just watched this movie called Slither, and
Oh,
that's
I
exactly
heard of
what you're describing. Oh my god.
There's very similar sort of occurrence to me. Must have been 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Suffered from shingles. Started it around top of my leg and ignored it. Went as far as my as far up as my butt crack and as low down to my ankle. And then I decided to see the crack.
That's
Yeah,
that's getting
it
close
takes
to
a lot to get a
spooky.
man to the doctor. I think sometimes.
That's getting close to spooky action right there.
You guys are talking about this thing, and this has become so reoccurring in the conversations that I have. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. The people I talk to are always older, but I don't know. But this seems to be a theme that keeps coming up, and it's like, oh, I ignored this, and now I have this problem, or I ignored that, and I had that problem, and I'm just hearing horror story after horror story. I have enough issues of my own that I've been ignoring like 10, 20 years, and I've lately just started going to the doctors, and so I'm
Welcome to the club, my friend.
I'm regretting not going to the doctors.
Yeah,
I could have
finally
prevented.
getting dragged there by the ambulance or something.
Well, once Mark started talking about his butt crack, and then you started saying that actually does go into spooky action. When you look at it from when it comes from a scientific point of view and stuff.
Oh, not like an entanglement like how Jada Pinkett Smith had, right? Not that kind of entanglement.
No, well, what it is basically this harmonizes with like holism or mysticism and or symbolic unity and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So spooky action is basically reframed as like like a shape, I guess you could say a shape. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So when you're having these conversations, all of a sudden we were talking about the Magellan, or I always have a hard time saying that word, but we started talking about that, and then freaking Mark is talking about a rash running up his freaking butthole. You know what I mean? And then the next thing you know, you're freaking having these horrible freaking stories pop up everywhere, and of course now you got to start going to the doctor. You know what I'm saying?
I'm having dreams about us in a freaking wrestler tag team duo,
That's
long hair, heavy metal.
Yeah,
1980s
that's spooky
music
action,
video.
dude. it
We're
really
talking about the
it-
80s. Are you having long hair?
listen. It really is a scientific terminology. It might not be scientific, but they use it. Okay, spooky action is like symbolic
spooky as hell.
unity. It's symbolic unity, man.
Yeah.
It's really strange how that played out. Like every bit of this conversation is just leading you exactly right down the list of things that freaking I've been actually catching on to. Like this geometry stuff in physics and unified quantum. What is it? Unified quantum UQRC relativity curvature. All of that. It's real stuff. It really is. Very real stuff. I'm sitting here listening to you, and like you guys are speaking it as I bring it up. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just so these things I've just found lately. I need to listen to old people more.
Well, like you look at
I'm one.
you look at Mark talking about his butt crack. That's straight up black hole.
Certainly, it's a singularity, but
Yeah.
we don't need to go there.
Well,
It's curved into the membrane, dude. You know.
Ah.
Well, eventually, I mean, I've been looking for hosts and media people, anyone who might have a scientific mind, go over put commentary on my documentary.
Mhm.
Ah.
And I gave you that information, Otto, if you ever want to join.
Oh, you
that
know, I
pod-
have not had a chance to look yet. I shall, though. You took that was the photo you sent me, right?
Yeah, because there's a ton of links.
Okay,
I didn't
so
have the time to type it out to you at that moment.
No, I can use a keyboard when I put my tiny little mind to it. You'd be surprised. I'll check them out. I will.
Well, I would actually like to have you three guys like review and do like commentary. You can literally make an entire series out of it because it already is a series.
I'm so sick of series though. Like, to be honest, if I do something, I'm gonna stop doing like the 12 episodes a year thing. You know, that's so
Like get
cliche.
12 episodes out of one documentary.
That's what I'm trying to say. Freaking, you know, and then I'd switch to another freaking topic and everything, and then I started doing that crap when I started getting into video games because I wanted to do a variety of games, and then it kind of like changed over to doing all this stuff. But I'm getting sick of it. I'm,
You need a vacation. You need a vacation.
well, what I want to do is I want to do stuff that I enjoy doing, like sitting here hanging out with you guys talking about stuff is freaking cool. You know what I mean? I like it. So
Oh yeah, it's just marketing it is tough.
yeah. Well, Mark.
Everyone that likes this stuff is here right now.
Right, Mark's the only one out of all of us who freaking tells me that I'm a bad marketer. Like it, you know. I mean, I market pretty good, but he disagrees with me. He doesn't think my sexy voice sells the product.
What
Well,
you got to
I
do
think-
is they like the ghost stuff and the haunting stuff. So
Yeah.
you got to do at least one show where it's strictly that. Like I was talking to a guy today that you could have on. He talked about he goes to me, "Do you believe in the fairy folk?" I'm like, "What?" And the fairy folk, like fairy circles, you know, elves and stuff.
hmm
And he was telling me about an incident that he had where he felt he had an interaction with elves. And then he was telling me stories of these other. He grew up in this really rural area of New York State. We call it Egypt sometimes. The name of the town is spelled Cairo, as in Cairo in Egypt, Cairo, but they pronounce it Cairo. And woe betide the person that calls it Cairo. It's supposed to be Caro. They all live in Caro. And it's a very rural, very mountainous part of the state. I have been there. Beautiful scenery. Skiing is the main thing there. But anyway, he was relating some of these, and I'm like, dude, you know, would you like to be on a show sometime? And he's like, oh yeah. So yeah, he might be a good guy for future reference. Interesting guy.
That'd be pretty cool.